Episode 6, Shadows of the Past. Dema's hands tightened around the steering wheel as she sped toward the police station. Her heart pounded against her ribs, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. It was a 2-hour drive, but it felt like an eternity. When she arrived, the officers led her to the DPO's office. To her surprise, it was someone she knew. The DPO turned. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Dema? She froze. The same man who had helped her legalize and finalized Ethan's adoption years ago was now standing before her. He sighed. Your son hit a pedestrian. Dema's eyes darted to Ethan and Nia, seated in the corner, looking shaken. Is the man alive? She asked. The DPO hesitated. No updates from the hospital yet. He then added, could that be the boy we rescued some years back? Yes, he is the one, Dema said. Dema exhaled shakily. Can I see my kids? He studied Dema for a moment and nodded, signaling the officers to release them, and moments later, Ethan and Nia were released. The siblings clung to their mother, shaken but relieved. It's late, the DPO advised. You shouldn't drive home in this state. There's a guest house nearby, stay the night. We'll check on the victim tomorrow. That night, as they settled into the guest house, an unsettling thought gnawed at Nia. Mom, she asked cautiously, you didn't pay any bail bond, did you? And besides, the man seems to know Ethan, whereas this is our first time seeing him. Dema hesitated. No. The DPO is an old friend, he knew you guys when you were little and he was transferred out of our state, so we lost contacts. Something in her tone made Nia uneasy, but she didn't press further. The next morning, they arrived at the hospital. A nurse led them to the intensive care unit. Dema stepped inside, then gasped, her blood running cold. She knew that face. Alex? Her vision blurred, and the world tilted. Then, darkness. The cold hum of fluorescent lights filled the hospital room. Dema's head pounded as she forced her eyes open, her vision blurry. Her body ached from the impact, but the pain was nothing compared to the shock that paralyzed her when she saw him. Alex. His face was gaunt, his beard unkempt, and his clothes torn from years of hardship. He was nothing more than a shadow of the man he used to be. A mere barrow pusher now, stripped of the pride and wealth he once flaunted. The moment his eyes landed on Dema, his lips trembled, and tears spilled down his weathered cheeks. Without hesitation, he fell to his knees, his hands gripping the cold tiles beneath him. Dema, please, forgive me. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. The police officers, nurses, Nia, and Ethan stood frozen, watching the scene unfold like a tragic play. Nia swallowed hard, her voice shaking. Mom, who is this man? Dema inhaled sharply, forcing herself to look into her daughter's confused eyes. He is your father. A sharp gasp filled the room. Ethan took a step forward, his heart pounding. Wait, what? Mom, you told us our dad was dead. Dema clenched her fists. The weight of her lie pressed down on her like an avalanche. She turned to Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, my son. I'm sorry. I lied. Alex is Nia's father, but he is not yours. A deafening silence. Ethan's breath hitched. His legs felt weak as he gripped the doorframe for support. So, Nia isn't my biological sister? His voice cracked. Dema couldn't look at him. She couldn't bear to see the heartbreak on his face. Then, who am I? Ethan whispered, his voice laced with fear. No answer. Dema turned back to Alex, her jaw clenched. The years of buried rage boiled over as she spat, you monster. You left me. You left us. I was in that hospital, alone, suffering with our newborn daughter, and you disappeared like a coward. I gave you everything, the cars, the comfort, the love, but when I needed you the most, you ran. You ran, Alex. Alex's shoulders shook as he bowed his head in shame. I had no choice, he croaked. I failed you, Dema. I failed all of you. He wiped his face roughly and continued, when we were married for 3 years with no child, I lost myself. I had an affair. Nia staggered back. Dema's nails dug into her palms. You what? Alex's lips trembled. She got pregnant first, and then 2 days later, you told me you were pregnant too. I didn't know what to do. She had no one, she was thrown out of her home. When you both gave birth at nearly the same time, I panicked. I had nothing. I couldn't take care of either of you. Dema's breath caught in her throat. Alex's voice was barely audible. So I ran. Ethan's fists clenched. His mind was spinning. His entire life suddenly felt like a lie. You abandoned her, Ethan said, his voice shaking with anger. You left her to suffer alone while you ran off with another woman? Alex hesitated. No, he whispered. I didn't run with her. By the time I went back, she was gone. A chilling stillness filled the room. Nia's lips parted, her voice barely a whisper. What happened to the baby? Alex looked up slowly, his face pale. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The room felt colder. The air heavier. Dema's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Alex, she said, her voice trembling. Where is that child? Alex's lips quivered, his eyes darting to Ethan for a split second before dropping to the floor. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, the door to the hospital room burst open. A woman stumbled in, unkempt, frail, and reeking of hardship. Her clothes were worn thin, her hair unkempt, and an unmistakable smell of sweat and suffering clung to her like a second skin. She rushed to Alex's side, wrapping her thin arms around him, oblivious to the heavy atmosphere in the room. Alex, she sobbed. Are you okay? Alex placed a trembling hand on her back, easing her onto the chair beside him. His voice was barely audible as he turned to her. Rita, you need to hear this, and then he told her who Dema was and his everything happened. Rita's confused eyes darted from Alex to Dema, then to the police officers standing nearby. Something was wrong. She fell to her knees before Dema, her lips quivering. Dema, she whispered. Please, forgive me. The room grew even quieter. Dema stiffened. Forgive you for what? Rita swallowed hard, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. For cheating with your husband, for destroying your marriage. Alex bowed his head in shame. Dema's hands curled into fists, but before she could speak, Rita turned to her husband, her voice breaking. Alex. I have a confession to make. Alex's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Rita swallowed the lump in her throat and stared at the floor. When we met, and I told you that I was robbed and the baby was taken away from me. I lied. Alex's body went rigid. His fingers gripped the edge of his chair as his heart pounded in his chest. You did what? He whispered. Tears spilled down Rita's face. I didn't know what to do. I was scared, Alex. I thought you wouldn't take care of me and my baby since your wife had just given birth. So, I abandoned him. A pin-drop silence followed. The DPO, who was then an inspector and was the one that saw the baby that night, stepped forward. Where did you leave the baby? Rita sniffled. At the gate of Gabriel's hospital, on a cold December night. Dema's heart slammed against her ribs. What date? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Rita rubbed her arms as if to protect herself from a ghostly chill. December 18th, around 11 p.m. I wrapped him in a blue carrier, and before I left, she paused, her voice cracking, I gave him a small burn on his right neck, so that one day, I could recognize him. The world seemed to stop. Dema gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Her body trembled as her mind raced. The blue carrier. The scar. The night the police brought a baby to the hospital, just as she was losing hope that Nia wouldn't survive. She turned, her gaze locking onto Ethan. Ethan. Her voice wavered. She's your mother. A sharp inhale. Ethan blinked, his lips parted, but no words came out. His entire body tensed as he processed the truth. His hands shook, his breath quickened. The woman he had never met. The woman who had abandoned him. She was standing right in front of him. Rita let out a strangled sob and reached for Ethan, but he stepped back. No, 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 no. He whispered, his entire being rejecting the truth. His heart pounded so hard it threatened to burst. This can't be happening. But it was. As the reality settled, pain, betrayal, and fate collided in one cruel twist. A bitter goodbye. Dema, strong despite the chaos, took control. She promised to take Rita back home, offering her a chance at redemption. But Alex had already reached the end of his road. The next morning, when they returned to the hospital, he was smiling. For the first time in years, he felt whole again. But his time was running out. The doctor pulled Dema aside, his expression grim. Alex is suffering from severe arrhythmia, he said softly. He doesn't have much time left. Dema's heart clenched. She turned to Alex, her eyes filling with tears. But before she could speak, he offered her a weak smile. I know, he whispered. Just take care of them. Dema squeezed his hand, knowing this was the last time she would see him alive. The next morning, the phone rang. Dema's fingers trembled as she picked it up. The doctor's voice was quiet, but the words hit her like a thunderbolt. Alex is gone. 2 days later, dressed in black, the family stood at the cemetery, watching as Alex was lowered into the ground. A man who had abandoned his family, only to find them again, too late. Ethan stared at the grave, his mind still battling the truth. Rita wept silently, the weight of her past sins crushing her. And Dema, strong as ever, stood still, watching the final chapter of their story close. Was Rita really worthy of Ethan's forgiveness? Did Alex deserve to die? Would you say Dema is the greatest mother of all times for taking Rita in with her?